Hello, I'm AlinaGG, and welcome to Inspire Me with AlinaGG. I have a very special guest today, Sam Parker from Grab Life by the Balls. Welcome aboard.
Hey, Helena, how are you?
Great, great. So we're just chatting, and it's Men's Health Week. How's that been going?
Yeah, there's a lot happening, which is really good to see. Oh, we're definitely creating some ripples. Men's Health Week exists because health outcomes for guys compared to women throughout all age groups, boys to men, are drastically worse, and men die younger than women. And yeah, it's a really big issue, and it's starting to get a bit more traction, I feel. Obviously, I'm in the space, so I see it a bit more. We want to make a bit more noise about it because it's still a bit taboo to talk about men's health and men's health issues, and there's definitely a pushback in the general sort of population and the general media. There's definitely it's not a trendy topic. It's not a topic that people want to talk about, and it's not one that the government is really pushing either to make some change in. So that's why we exist, unfortunately.
Wow, that's surprising to hear. I thought in this day and age that would not be the case. So let's keep going
It's
with
not.
it.
It's not
Yeah.
what I find on the ground. Most people that come and talk to me, or see our shirt, or see the card that's got all the stickers on it with our logos and stuff, women really lean into these conversations. So haven't had too many people push back. Not to my face, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real conversation, and people are, and women in particular, and mums, are really passionate about what we can do for our young boys as well, because they can see this happening, and they know what's happening, and they want to make sure that the men's statistics in Australia are pretty dire when it comes to men's mental health and male suicide. Now, 7 of the 9 suicides every day in Australia are men,
Mm-hmm.
and the leading cause of death for males from 15 to 55 is suicide. So something really needs to be done. And then the general trend with mental health conditions and disorders, male and female in Australia, is that 1 in 2 of us will have some sort of mental health condition or disorder in our lifetime, and that's it's a pretty shitty stat that needs reversing for sure.
Yeah, okay. So you started this in 2016. Quickly, your origin story, what prompted you to start this?
Could see a real need. I graduated as a chiropractor, and all of a sudden had this spare time that wasn't spent studying, and I invested heavily in personal development, I suppose, for lack of a better term, and could see a real need of my own shortcomings as a bloke, and my own shortcomings as a sports person, and I felt like there was a real need. I went out there and yelled it from the rooftops and wanted to, convert everyone and get people talking about this. And I found most guys just either gave me the bird or walked away. They didn't physically give me the bird, but I was like, okay, so guys don't want to hear this. And a lot of the stuff that I was putting out there, women were definitely more interested in. And then I had my sort of aha moment where I suppose Grab Life by the Balls got its ballsiness was about 18 months into to Jacko being born. Jacko's at the same school. Just started prep this year. When Jacko was about 18 months, 2 years old, I sort of started questioning what the fuck am I doing and why the fuck am I doing it? And comparing myself to the highlight reels of everyone else posting about four-wheel drives and white picket fences and Bali holidays and all those sorts of things. And felt quite inadequate. And then the question floored me. I kind of shat myself when the question got to me. I was like, okay, what would Jacko's life look like without a dad?
Mm.
And it, luckily for me, it scared the crap out of me. But then it gave a real insight into what's going on for men. Like, I could recite the stats being a healthcare practitioner. I knew it was going on, and I was sort of, preaching, if you like, for, pushing it out there. But having that a bit of that experience and that snapshot, I was like, holy crap, this is a massive issue, and no one's really doing it in a way that's empowering for men, that's fun for men, that's meeting the target market. There's lots of stats around. The general thing that gets thrown out there is that men need to talk more. November found that 75% of men think it's great for their mental health to talk more. 40% of those guys regret reaching out to someone because it didn't go well. A recent stat, the other stat around that is that 50% of male suicides reach out to the system before they suicide. Even more recent stat, in Victoria, 90 or more percent have reached out to the system with male when it comes to men and male suicide in Victoria. 90% of the male suicides in Victoria at the moment have actually reached out to the system. So the system's not working. The system is broken. It does take time. It is needed, but it's not going to be the only answer. And things like non-clinical, if you like, is the technical term, non-clinical approaches to improve men's health and well-being, like Grab Life by the Balls, and there's many others like us, are the grassroots things that are needed in our communities to help turn around, these shocking men's health statistics. So
Wow.
that's why we exist. And the part of it, the name Grab Life by the Balls, yes, the part of the the problem, if you like, that we're solving is part of that. But the philosophy behind what we're doing is more about how do we create empowered, on purpose, inspired men? How do we create healthy and happier men? Because that's going to help our communities, that's going to help our boys, and that's going to help the health of the general society.
And that's challenging when it's generational, right? That conditioning, like if it wasn't okay for the dad to talk or the grandfather, and it's like, nope, squash it down. You're weak if you're vulnerable or you talk, which we know is absolutely not true. But it's like, if people still hold those misbeliefs, you can understand why it is hard for people to actually reach out. And if they've actually had the courage to reach out and been shot down, that is heartbreaking. Like, it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, and it's really challenging because some of those some of that conditioning and some of those things that were brought up, to a point, they're actually quite healthy. They're quite good. When you're challenged, sometimes you do need to turn in and go in and step forward and sometimes sort out your own shit. But to a point, we also need to the other side. The paradox of life is that it's a bit of yin and yang, that we also need some support along the way as well. And that's why everything that we do may be really simple on the outside. We create social events for guys to get together, and I underline social. It's about getting guys together, because if we've got that trust and rapport and that mateship, if you like, in inverted commas, that stronger social connection, that's when conversations start. Or sometimes the conversation doesn't even start, but just having a place to be, to connect with other men, to have shoot the shit, talk crap, just hang out, is actually really beneficial. I don't know exactly how many lives we've changed, or people that we've kept alive because of our social events, because it's not always the conversation. It's just that social connection, which I think we're lacking as a general society with internet, social media, and all those sorts of things. That strong social connection, that community, is lacking. And unfortunately, like I was saying to someone earlier today, unfortunately our events are popular because we're creating that community, something that, like my dad used to have a few beers over the back fence in our farm outskirts of Leeton, in a little place called Murrumai, having a beer over the fence or in the shearing shed with our next door neighbour, Johnny, and his workers, like that's unheard of these days. So we're trying to replicate a little bit of that. It's like a men's shed without the shed. But the simplicity of that approach is allowing men of all walks of life to step up and into whatever transformation is for them, whatever way, shape, or form it is for them to move forward. Guys seem to take that if they're given the option. We create the space, and then they do with it what they will. Some of these guys go on to mentor other men. Some of these guys reach out for more help. Some of these guys meet some new mates and they go off running and doing those sorts of things. The ripple effect, there's I suppose there's principles underlie living a good, a long, healthy, happy life, but it's up to the individual to grab life by the balls and do it in their own way. And that's, I think that's why we meet the target market so well. That's why we need to grow. We need to be bigger. We need to be reaching out to more and more communities across Australia to have this blokey, laid-back approach, because it fits the target. It actually fits part of this grassroots change that's needed. The bigger organisations aren't, where are they? Where are they helping our community right now? Yeah, they've got some online resources and things like that. But for Grab Life by the Balls on the Sunshine Coast, we've got all these locations that we're at every week for guys to connect. And there's that grassroots, there's that community-based approach to build on and to continue to make massive change, the change is actually needed, rather than sitting around here talking about it, following the white papers that the Australian government have put out themselves. So the National Men's Health Strategy for 2020-2030, let's stop talking about it. Let's actually start making some action. And the action that's provided is actually moving towards better health, moving towards a healthier, happier life, rather than continually focusing on the problems and putting research and money there, actually giving people an opportunity to step up and into whatever it means to grab life by the balls for them.
Wow, there's so much there. And you're obviously clearly an action taker. And that's what makes a difference. Sometimes we just got to roll our sleeves up and get out there and do it. And and also it's great that you're creating these, space and time for men to meet up, and you're meeting them where they're at. And I noticed as well, you're not forcing them to talk. There's none of that. They can just come along and just hang out and just chill. They don't need to talk if they don't want to. So I really admire that you're just being real about the whole thing. And so if someone really wanted to kind of reach out or connect, or they were feeling very isolated and separate, how could they do that if they couldn't come to one of these meetups?
Well, I think that's part of what we do with more of our industry talks, our business talks on how to be a great mate, is that it doesn't matter what mateship looks like for you. you may not want to come and meet a bunch of random blokes. And most blokes don't really want to come and introduce themselves to 10 or 12 random blokes they have no idea about. I don't want to do it necessarily all the time. It's a challenge, but it's doing what works for you, whether that's going for a surf or a stand-up paddle, going for a fish, having a bonfire, whatever it is. Do mateship your way. Like, we did a talk with Sunshine Toyota not that long ago about how to be a great mate, and got some feedback from the principal there, Darren, great fella. And he wasn't so fussed about my talk. He thought the talk was great, but he was more stoked that he'd spent all this time and effort and ideas on trying to help build the team and the culture. And then after the talk, the sales guys all got together. It's like, right, we need to do this. We know mateship's good for us now. Like, let's do something. So they had a poker night like a couple of days later. Like, that's the ripple effect of change that we'd like to see. That's the little step in the right direction to help move the needle away from where we're at. Because the loneliness factor, the isolation factor is also massive risk factors for male suicide and mental health issues, particularly with men. Like, 1 in 3 men in Australia experience loneliness. Like, that's huge. 1 in 4 don't have a close mate outside their immediate family to chat with, to talk about stuff. There's a really isolated kind of thing that's going on with men and men's health, and it shouldn't be that way, and we need to change it. And it's just the simple things. If we get the mateship in that community and that culture happening and moving, like I said, there's exercise after that, or there's chats that happen after that, or there's reaching out to different things after that, or stepping up in a different way. It seems to start with mateship. If we can have that strong connection of mateship, whether it's actually an event that we're holding or knowing that I need to go and connect and do something with my mates, just that little thing will snowball into massive changes, is what we see every day.
Yeah, right. And also, I was just thinking, mates that have your back, mates who actually want you to succeed and do well. I think that's really important as well. Like, one of my best mates, he's like, oh no, if he's feeling low, he doesn't really want to talk. I'm like, well, why don't you go see someone or talk to someone? He's like, oh, men don't do that. And I'm like, no, really, you can. And he'll obviously open up to me, but it's like, how do we change that conditioning and make it okay?
Yeah. Well, and then part of that is why we do the how to be a great mate chat as well. Was I started doing that because people see someone who's struggling and they pack their dacks that they're not going to be able to say the right thing, but that they're not a counselor, they're not a psychologist. But if what I say to everyone, all the blokes out there, is that when you're in the shit, who do you actually want to talk to? You don't necessarily want to talk to someone like a psychologist. You just need a mate. You need a mate to reach out and pull you out of the shit sometimes. And that's what happens when you're under stress. The brain's not working properly. We go insular, we're stressed. That's why we need a great mate around us. And that's why we talk about how to be a great mate, is to say, hey, mate, what's going on? And just to be there to listen, to chat, not have to fix anything, not force people to talk, but know that they've got their back. And then if they do need help, yep, I will give you a hand. Like, this is where we can go, or I will reach out to Grab Life by the Balls and we'll sort it out.
Fantastic. Well, look, I know you don't have much time today, so we can wrap it up unless there's anything else that's front of mind for you.
Oh, no, I'm happy to talk all day, but, okay. Like, whatever. Try and stop me.
Okay. And so, so how can people connect with you, Sam, and your organization?
Yeah, so we're not government funded or anything like that at the moment. We're working towards all sorts of things like that. So we do need your help. Grablifebytheballs.com.au. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. So if you'd love to help the cause and volunteer, there's options on the website for that. If you want to donate, there's options for that. If you want to wear some of our merch, which I reckon looks pretty good, and people always stop you for a conversation when you got Grab Life by the Balls written all over your T-shirt or your cap, head to the store at the website. Things are really happening, really picking up quite quickly. If you're in big business or you've got some connections to big business, our How to Be a Great Mate chats are a really quick and easy way that we can create a more viable organisation. So if you want to book that, you can do that via the website. We're really trying to turn around very quickly and have some more youth programs, potentially some youth events, particularly on the Sunshine Coast. There's a real need for that, and people are reaching out for that. All of that stuff can be found at our website. Sign up to our weekly email. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and all those sorts of places. But there's a lot of noise with that. If you really want to see what we're up to, please check out the website.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope the rest of Men's Health Week goes well for you.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Alina.
No worries. See ya.